The following is brought to you in part by Patrick McLaughlin of Douglas Elliman Real Estate. And by a donation from the Melissa Cohn Group with William Ravis Mortgage. More information at raveis.com. Yes, these are the dog days of summer, and we are rolling over and begging for air conditioning. Thank goodness for the cool sounds of Jim Turner. You're listening to him now. Don't sweat it, that's our job. This is AirHamptons with Bridget and Bill.
Which one are you?
I'm never sure. I've never known.
It's like we're the same person.
Yeah. I'm getting cooler just listening to him. Thank you, Jim. Wow,
Thanks.
It's August already. What happened? Where'd the summer go?
I know. Well, I think that every year. It goes faster and faster. Thank you, Jim Turner.
We're going to have some great guests today. We're talking to Gary Bierfriend about the giant Cannabis Expo, and then the revolution that's happening on the east end of Long Island. You can sell it some places, you can't sell it other places.
Oh yeah, and it changes like all the time.
It does. So, but you don't have to get to that guy out in the van on the corner anymore. And actually, Gary's whole message is about making it responsible, having family-oriented kind of things to do. They did a comedy thing last month where you could get high and watch, and the comics were all.
Isn't that what everybody does when they go to a comedy club?
But now they're making it.
Now they're making it acceptable. And then we have Shemaine McNaughton on, who's like the rock star of beverage directors. She's with the Honest Man Group. Everybody knows Nick and Tony's and Coche Commodore, La Fondita, Townline Barbecue, and Rowdy.
Some of the hottest restaurants on the east end of Long Island, so it makes sense that they're part of the dog days of summer.
Yeah,
the hot days. And I want to hear about Nick and Tony's. I mean, I never get it. Can she get me in?
Probably not.
Yeah, it's a tough ticket.
I will also have Patrick McLaughlin talking about the most expensive and
August rentals ever.
Oh, that's going to be something.
Oh, man.
That's going to be something.
Did the Russian oligarchs leaving really make the market crash?
Who knows?
I mean,
that was months ago.
If you're listening to this and don't know about how expensive it can be in the Hamptons, you're going to be stunned by some of the numbers for a summer rental. When you think of summer rental, if you're thinking John Candy and his family showing up for a little beach shack, that is not
the story.
Or if that was available, it would be $500,000.
Yes,
for August, through Labor
just
Day.
For August, yeah.
Hey, it is hot, but it's not as hot as it has been. So one thing that I wanted to point out to you that in 1938, that's as far as the records go back, they've been starting to track the temperatures. And on July 3rd of 1966, guess how hot it was? What's the all-time record out here?
Out here?
Yeah.
Like 104. What?
You're such a cheater.
What?
That's 104.
Are you kidding? I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea.
104 on July 3rd, 1966.
I was almost 3 years old.
And
so there you go. I remember.
It was a hot summer for you.
104. See, I was actually giving you room, like, when like a woman says to you, or anybody says to you, guess my age, and you always like go on the low side. I was going on the low side so you could be like, wrong, it was 112.
Oh, no.
But I
thought you meant wrong. You weren't 3 years old.
I was 2.5.
You were sweating. Who's going to change this diaper?
I know. I was toilet trained by then.
Oh, but
for God's sake,
but
not
soon
now.
Back to the diapers. Yeah, okay.
Oh, yay. So
also, TripAdvisor listing the top 100 summer attractions in Long Island.
Okay.
And
I'm not going to guess, because if I guess, you're going to be...
Cooper's Beach is on there. There's a place that looks like Bruce Wayne's house, and it's called Sands Point Preserve.
Oh, yeah.
I know
it
looks like Wayne Manor. That's number 19.
Not to be confused with Kings Point, which is the old psych ward place.
I was never confused.
Okay, I thought you might have visited there a couple of times.
The Vanderbilt Mansion or Museum has a planetarium, and it's 27. But the number one attraction, according to TripAdvisor...
Montauk Lighthouse.
No!
What? Is it?
Yes, you did it again.
I am the smartest person in the room.
I did not know that.
I did not know that.
You didn't? Yeah, you just guessed that?
Of course.
But what's there?
Try going out to Montauk on a Saturday.
I know.
Well,
first of all, you can't get there. But secondly, what's right? It is a conga line. But what's to see? I've been to that lighthouse.
It's beautiful.
Why is that the number one attraction in Long Island?
Freaking beautiful, guy. It's beautiful. That's why.
I think a more interesting attraction is going to be happening on August 18th, and it's the Cannabis Expo.
Right.
And it's happening out here. And this is the man, Gary Bierfriend, who dreamt it up about 7 years ago. Hi,
Yes.
Gary. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Gary.
Hey, Bridget.
Are you holding? Do you have anything anything on you? Can we light up?
No, we're going to have to wait for August 18th.
Okay.
No, what made you want to bring this here? What is it about the Cannabis Expo and the Hamptons that you think is synergistic? That's the word I was looking for, by the way, before.
Wow, good.
Well, what is synergistic? Well, one thing, the Hamptons is very progressive and a very intelligent market. And
Yeah,
it's
don't go
also-
by us.
Yeah. We are not the norm.
It
People
has
are
an
much smarter than us.
amazing year-round family community, and during the summer we have a huge influx of the one percenters from Wall Street and beyond that are very serious-minded about cannabis and aren't thinking about it in a hedonistic way. They're thinking about it as a commercially and a socially responsible alternative to drugs and
Plant
alcohol
medicine.
and plant medicine.
Other drugs, yeah.
Yeah, and most users really have, I've realized through my research, have really been using it as self-medication.
For sure. So so this is not the stoner, like when people hear cannabis. Like
Oh,
you
they'll
gotta do
show
the whole
up.
thing.
They'll be there too.
They'll show up, but this is a more kind of intellectual vision.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I started doing the show many years ago, is the shows that were being presented were more hedonistic in nature, and they weren't really considering all the wellness implications and how it's transformational to us as a society.
So you have put together panels, guest panels, with politicians, with some of the folks who are in the industry, and you've been kind of a conduit to get everybody on the same stage, literally. Who's coming this year?
This year, we have the OCM, which is the Office of Cannabis Management. It's the New York State agency that regulates
Medical
the industry.
marijuana.
How
Yeah.
old is that? That strikes me as something they just came up with last year or the year before. Has that been around for a long time?
It's been around for several years, but you might hear from others that it doesn't seem like it's been around because there's been challenges over the past year with getting the regulations out and getting stores open, but they've been taking very drastic measures in terms of righting a wrong and getting the commercialization and the supply chains going again. So that's part of the reason why my first panel this year is going to be a government panel with politicians and regulators to talk about all the dramatic changes that are happening right now this month that will boost the industry, which has been challenged over the past year.
Boy, if I was high, I would think that's the last thing I wanted to sit and listen to, but maybe I'm wrong. Is there any music? Has you got like
it's really important because, especially out here, and you guys might know, of course, I did a little film about Dave Falkowski, who's Open-Minded Organics. And,
hashtag shameless plug.
Yeah, hashtag shameless plug. But you can't see it anywhere, so it's not a plug. But, there's a lot of people, and there's a Dragon Hemp Apothecary. There's definitely people in the Hamptons who are coming forward. There's one in Watermill. I don't remember the name right now, but it's kind of like bespoke designer. Not Dave. Dave is the real deal. It's organic and full spectrum. But I've noticed there's other things where you can get like red gummies or orange gummies to make you happy.
Yeah, the laws are a little weird out here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's towns and villages can both vote as to whether or not they want to sell this stuff.
Right.
And it's clarify that for us. Where can you and can't you buy it? Besides the reservation, which we should tell people we're on. We're adjacent to in Southampton,
to Shinnecock.
the Shinnecock, and they can sell on the old Montauk Highway.
And they're building a dispensary there too. I think that's the big building.
Little
going
Beach
up.
Harvest is the sanctioned government, Shinnecock government dispensary that is licensed and backed by serious investors.
But otherwise, each town has been voting yes or no whether they can have the what do you still call them, head shops, or what if you can have cannabis stores?
CBD dispensaries.
Dispensaries.
And
Okay.
some have said yes and some have said no. And it's a little complicated in Southampton, right? Because the village said no, but the town said yes.
Yes.
Have I got that right?
Yes, you've got that right. And the good news is that the town, obviously geographically, it's the entire footprint. It's only the villages within the town that opted out.
Gary, can I ask you, how did your journey to this begin? It's a bright idea, but what's your personal experience?
Well, my personal testimony is I never even tried cannabis until I was 30 years old. And I did that because I felt I was a mature, responsible adult, and I was looking for an alternative to pharmaceuticals to help me sleep, deal with anxiety. And quite frankly, on the recreational side, when I drank alcohol, I woke up in the morning, it felt terrible, my stomach killed me. as compared to cannabis. I woke up in the morning, my stomach felt great, and I felt refreshed.
Right, because it's an anti-inflammatory as well. I mean, the CBD and the CBN. CBN helps you sleep, right? The cannabinoid.
Yes, correct. And then I had to stop taking it for about a decade for personal reasons. I took over custody of my children, and it was a Schedule I drug. It was illegal for it to be in my system. And then I turned to Ambien. And then I became not addicted, but dependent on Ambien. If I didn't have at least a half a pill, I couldn't go to sleep.
You're singing my song. I get that.
So when it became legal in New York 7-8 years ago, I got my medical license and started using that again instead of Ambien. And I was really angry at society and the world that for 10 years I was deprived of a better, healthier alternative for my body and my mind. And I'm like, this is transformational.
Yeah.
And then I was producing investor events on all verticals for entrepreneurs. And when I started doing cannabis events, I saw that we had 10 times more audience. It was much more interesting. And I'm like, you know what? I go, this makes a lot of sense for me to go narrow and deep into this vertical to explore commercialization, investing. And the worst thing that can happen is I leave a better footprint for my grandchildren, for this world.
You mentioned the Ambien thing, and I wonder, is Big Pharma finally on board with cannabis, or are they fighting you the way they fight a lot of other
natural,
holistic or natural alternatives?
Well, it's similar. The alcohol lobbyists are the number one opponent towards cannabis because it is the number one threat to their market share. And that is why a lot of people question, well, why is the government doing this? Why are they doing that? The things that are unexplainable are on the sidelines and aren't spoken about and aren't put underneath the microscope. So, of course, this does not help the pharmaceutical industry until they start commercializing it. Now, many of the big pharmacies are developing medical, FDA and medically approved alternatives, but they're still many years away. So if and until that time, they don't want to lose their market share.
So where is this event going to be held?
We have a new venue this year. I moved it from East Hampton back to Southampton Village, where I originally started doing these events 7 years ago, to Main Prospect in Southampton Village. It's at 15 West Prospect Street. It's across from the Southampton Long Island Railroad train station. So
I know where that is, yeah.
It's much more accessible, convenient, safe, and easy for day trippers to come from Up Island.
So if people want to get more information about this, is there a website they can go to?
Absolutely.
What would that be, Gary Bierfriend?
CanExpo without an E, CanExpo.com, CanExpo.com.
And that's for the Cannabis Expo coming to us on August 18th in Southampton Village.
Friday, August 18th from 1 p.m. until 11 p.m. And it is not only business, but it's also pleasure this year. Before and after the panels, we'll have yoga, we'll have DJs,
munchies?
We'll have
munchies. Munchies are crucial.
We'll have live singing, and it'll be fun for the whole
and several
family.
hundred people. I mean, I've been to a couple of them at the clubhouse and other venues, and it draws a big crowd.
Well, CanExpo.com for more information. Gary, thank you so much for joining us on
August 18th. If you see a giant cloud,
do not be concerned.
Don't be concerned. Gary, thanks for joining us.
Gary, thanks so much.
Thank you, folks.
You are listening to AirHamptons with Bridget and Bill, and we are the hottest show on radio because we don't have air conditioning, and the show has no fans.
No fans, I get it. Oh my gosh, that was a good one.
You're sitting too close to me. It's too hot.
These
are the dog days of summer. A little later on, we're going to talk about movies, and we're going to have Jacqueline Bissett join us by Zoom.
Yeah.
She has a new movie called Lauren and Rose. We're going to talk about some of the big new movies coming this month. We've already gotten through Indiana Jones. We somehow made it by Mission Impossible. We drove off that ramp. And now, speaking of famous people, we're going to talk to someone who's maybe, I wouldn't say the restaurateur to the stars, but certainly this group of restaurants is important to the Hamptons and what happens out here.
The Honest Man Group, Nick and Tony's, Town Line Barbecue, Coach Commodore, La Fondita, and Rowdy Hall.
Rowdy Hall.
Some of the biggest names. You got
me at
Mark
Hall.
And Joe and everybody up there, and we have Shemaine McNaughton, I love, who is the beverage director and brought something. What is that? It says OMD. What is it?
It's because sometimes they let me name things.
Oh, okay.
It's OMD. If you're old enough, you should be able to get the reference, which is an 80s band orchestral maneuvers in the dark.
Yeah. I remember them. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I actually had one of their albums.
See?
Yes.
There you go.
An album.
This
Remember
is some of their bodily fluids? What are we looking at
This
here?
is this is what I came here to talk about.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. So we there's so much to talk about, and let's just make a reference to the Dog Days of Summer. Let's get that part out of the way first. You have or had rescued greyhounds?
I have.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I
So
read
tell
that.
me about that. How did you get into that first?
Where do you park those buses?
Exactly.
Very funny. Bill McCuddy gets off a good
So
one.
I actually grew up in the sport of dogs. My family is like, if you've ever seen the movie Best in Show,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
was my childhood.
Oh, no, you're kidding.
Truly, they got it exactly right. My mom actually ran Westminster and Westchester Kennel Clubs for decades.
Oh, that's so cool.
So legit, that was my childhood.
And what kind of
Those
dogs
people.
did you guys raise?
Well, we grew up with sight hounds. We were actually the dog show superintendents, so we were the Julie, your ship's cruise director for the shows. But I grew up with Whippets, and we had Dobies, also Dobermans, for some of my childhood. So I've been obsessed with sight hounds my whole life. And
Cool.
what happened was the whole family goes home every other year to LA for Christmas. And my mom somehow got a wild hair after 30 some years of not having a house whippet. And she went back to her original breeders who are friends and who are people who are dog handlers and judges in the sport. And she got herself a whippet puppy. My husband and I came home for Christmas, and here was this 5-month-old whippet puppy.
Aw.
And we had already done the ARF thing. You know, we had already been in dog rescue. And so once you do that, you kind of can't go back. So I tried to calibrate how do I get myself a rescue that is also a sight hound. And these dogs aren't actually rescues. They're retired racing greyhounds.
Oh, wow.
And so we...
They're retired, so that's different than a rescue. I mean, I know there's rescues as
Extremely
well.
high strung, right?
Not at
really.
all.
Really?
No, not
That's
at
not
all.
what good. I'm glad. I want to get these.
Not at all. I mean, they definitely have distinct personalities. There's
Yeah.
all different styles of dogs, just like any other breed or even any other
I guess
mixed breed.
they look so nervous. That's why people think
Yeah,
that. It's
they're
like
amazing.
a Chihuahua,
They're
you
not
know?
like that.
Yeah,
They're not like that.
I have
And
another
in fact,
friend who...
they have a couple of like physical tells that people get wrong all the time. So they have one that's like this chattering, we call it chittering, and they go and it's actually a sign of happiness.
Oh, they're
Oh.
not growling. That's
they're
not. That's the
they're like, so when they
misnomer
do
that
this with their little jaw and like this, and it's other sighthounds kind of have it too, but it's really a greyhound thing.
Yeah.
And then even
I do that when I'm
even the
hungry
kind
from
of
Mrs.
You do
McCuddy.
that?
Yeah, I get a little.
exactly
I do that when I want to get intimate with my husband.
chittering.
It's really...
Me to you, chittering.
It's so exciting.
And even
God,
the
I wish
little,
we could edit. Okay, go ahead.
even the little, like the little thing that looks like shivering sometimes, is a total, like it's a human manipulation. So my whippet used to do it outside in 85-degree Los Angeles heat to try to tell us, like, you have to let me in.
Yeah.
How many
That's
have you
very dog days
rescued
of
over
summer.
the years?
Not rescued.
So
Fostered,
our
but-
OG retired greyhound, Casey Bones Jones, he raced in Wheeling, West Virginia, and he was a champion racer there. And we adopted him in 2016.
wow.
And we've visited the track. We know his trainers really well. They are like on our speed dial. They're super helpful with things that you maybe wouldn't get from either an adoption group or something like that, because they really know the dogs. They know each individual dog. And these dogs grow up in colonies and kennels of sometimes 60, 70, 80, 90 dogs. So
Wow.
when they're adopted out and maybe they come home and they're an only dog, or
Yeah,
they
they
come to
lose
just
their
one
hierarchy,
dog,
right.
they don't have that whole vibe. And sometimes it's like really fish out of water. So it's been really helpful to have those guys as our resources. And then we got a pandemic puppy because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And then on the heels of the pandemic puppy, we decided to get another puppy, which is not a greyhound. She's not a full-bred greyhound. She's what's known as a lurcher, which is a UK cross. It's all sighthound with a working breed. So it's typically like over 75% greyhound, and then one of the like wiry coated sighthounds. So like Borzoi, Irish wolfhound, Scottish deerhound. So she's like really wiry, full coated.
But it's a working girl. You got to keep her
They're
busy.
ranch dogs. So she fished up with her sister in Clarksville, Tennessee,
Yeah.
and that's why we call her Shiloh.
Cute.
So they were running, they're coyote dogs, and somehow, I don't know how, but out of all the rescue groups, adoption groups in the United States, she ended up with ours in Connecticut, the people we're affiliated with, she and her sister. And so that's how we ended. I mean, we all saw it. They do like a national greyhound Amber Alert in these groups, like Greyhound. We call ourselves like a cult nation. So I knew about these dogs like months before we actually got her, and she ended up going to our Connecticut.
I'm thrilled to hear they get
adoption
rescued
group.
because I just assumed that those were very abused animals who ran until they dropped.
No, it's not that
I
at
don't
all.
mean to be.
They're
Right.
purpose-bred dogs. They're working dogs, and they're actually doing the purest thing that they're bred for thousands of years to do by chasing. So the racing thing is, however you feel about gambling, we don't have to talk about that. But the chase is what they're bred for, right?
What
They're
if
bred
they
for the
see a
hunt.
real rabbit in my backyard?
I could tell you the story about something that happened to my husband 1 week in on the end of a 6-foot leash with our dog. Casey.
Dragged through the tumbleweeds.
No, he's efficient. Let's just say that.
Went to the Montauk Lighthouse, which is the number one TripAdvisor
place to see. So from dogs to grogs, where you're
right.
Nice.
Thanks. It took me a
She's
minute
the queen
to
of
think of that.
pivot.
really
I
good.
am the queen of pivot. I want a shirt that says that.
I'll make it for
We're-
you.
oh,
I
great.
love
Will
that.
be.
Shemaine McNaughton, who is the beverage director of the Honest Man Group. So let's pivot to drinkability.
Yeah, we got some. You brought some ice, and the crew is,
what do we
the crew
have?
is excited about this. I
Jody
think they
and
want to
Gnu,
taste it
they're-
as well.
I have to have props.
Okay,
Okay.
awesome.
So
We'll give you
what I
props.
thought
Thanks
that
for
we
coming.
would talk about today, because this is really.
First, can you get me into Nick and Tony's, please?
I heard that earlier. I do have a few people that I try to help out because
I'm not on the list.
Do you have a non-alcoholic drink today?
I didn't bring any mocktails or coolers, but we do specialize in those. We offer them at all the restaurants.
Okay. Well, I may skip whatever.
If you're just joining us,
imbibement you
we
make
are
today.
we
I'll
are
smell
cooling
it.
off now in the dog days of summer, and we are getting a lesson in a new drink that is exclusive to the Hamptons. You guys invented this.
So actually, it's completely the opposite of that. Although I do think that we are.
I've got to come to the rehearsal.
I do think that we're the only ones making these drinks. So this is what we wanted to cover today is each of the restaurants has its own specialty cocktail menu, and we really feel like each of those menus is like kind of beams out like the soul and history and culture of that restaurant to our guests. Like that's my goal when I kind of create things.
So the one for Nick and Tony's, you can't get it.
So the one for Nick and Tony's is classics. It's based on pre-prohibition. That's what we call in cocktail ease.
Right.
Those are what are considered the classics. So those are drinks that were originated before the United States wasn't allowed to drink, right? So we're talking about cocktails that have been in the canon since the 1800s.
Okay.
So that's like the backbone of both Rowdy Hall and Nick and Tony's programs.
Classic cocktails, in
Classic
other words.
cocktails. So even
Like
if
Manhattans and old fashions. And,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then there's the modern classic canon, which has really come along just in, let's say, the last 20 years. There are drinks that are less than 20 years old that are now considered classics that have been built by
The
bartenders.
Appletini and the
That's exactly
Cosmo.
what I was thinking
Like
of. the
Naked and
apple-
Famous and like the Paper Plane. And these drinks are all built on the same kind of components. I mean, what makes a classic, right? You're not reinventing the wheel. You're kind of taking something and riffing on it. It's an adaptation. It's a variation. So, for example, things like Naked and Famous or the Paper Plane, these are equal parts cocktails. So they come together because each component.
Do you mind telling me what the
A
ingredients
Naked
of
and
the
what's a
Famous.
Naked
So
and Famous? I
what
was
goes
thinking the
into a
same
Naked
thing.
and Famous? So these are chartreuse-based cocktails. Chartreuse is like an ancient spirit that's made by monks in the Alps, and it's high proof,
alcohol, yeah.
right?
I remember
so
that as a
you
kid.
mix it with other things,
And it's green.
and you take it down. There's yellow and there's green.
Right,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
chartreuse. Right.
So
It's the same
Naked
color
and
coming
Famous
back
is
up.
Yellow
Trust me, I've been there. Yeah.
Same
Naked
color
and Famous
coming
is
back up.
yellow chartreuse, lime juice, mezcal, and in another hot white hot topic is Aperol. So it's equal parts of those components, like many other cocktails that are in the classic canon. And what's good about that? It's great for bartenders. Right? Because it's like you learn one measure and then that's what goes
I get
into
it,
it. So it's like a Negroni. It's like a bunch of drinks are based on that theory.
Okay, just about 2 minutes left. We want to make this drink.
We have a little bit longer.
Maybe three.
What I want to do,
Can
the
we
reason I
make
brought
this at
this
home?
drink.
Can you describe it in a way that'll have people?
This is why I brought this.
Okay.
These are things that we do
Yeah.
that we think kind of set the bar for our cocktail programs and set us apart
Set the
even
bar.
from other.
I like that. That was
See what I did there?
Yeah, listen to that.
even set us apart a little bit from the other restaurant groups, and even like the New York City-based restaurants that have joined us out here on the East End. This kind of came to me. I will fully admit that this was an aha moment that I had at Gramercy Tavern at lunch by myself, which is something that I do when I work in the city, which I do in the spring and the fall.
You like the front room better than the back room at Gramercy?
I sit at the bar.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively. Yeah. Okay. And I know those guys, and I just think that what Danny Meyer has done and does for hospitality is the pinnacle. So I go there to kind of commune, and like that's my mecca.
Oh, cool.
It's my North Star. So I always get very inspired there, and sometimes it's cocktails, sometimes it's a wine program. It could be a food thing that I tell the chefs about, but in this case, it was a milk punch.
Ooh, a milk punch. That sounds like very old-fashioned, though, isn't it?
It is. It's like
mead,
ancient.
right?
Right. So
I used
milk
to get
punches.
those in high school all the
I
time.
used to get them in
Yeah, it's not
elementary
bad.
school.
That guy would punch me for my milk. Okay, so
Milk punch. Gotcha.
So what we did was, so a milk punch is a way of clarifying a cocktail. It's also a way of preserving the ingredients in the cocktail. And it's old because it predates refrigeration. So Ben Franklin used to make milk punches. They go back to the 16 and 1700s in the UK.
Ooh.
And it was just one of those things of, I would never have ordered it otherwise. I asked the bartender, it was gin based. That's not usually my thing.
Like gin and milk?
You use the milk to clarify the cocktail.
Okay, you said that, so I was trying to understand.
So the goal really
mix
is...
away. Let's have some.
Yeah.
Let's-
So
There's no mixing.
Oh,
So
okay.
the whole
you-
point is it's a batch cocktail. So all the work happens ahead of time.
Okay.
So it becomes something that's very easy for the bartenders. And the reason that I brought it to you is that we're launching our Cocktails to Go program for Honest Man.
Cocktails to go. So you just drive up and get a drink and drive away?
Right.
I bet
Seems illegal.
it's a little more
Used to be
complicated.
illegal.
Really?
Thank you, COVID.
Oh, it's not now? You can just pick up a drink and drive away? Oh,
It's
my
not
goodness.
really like that per se.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
read the New York SLA law, the actual legislation,
Sure.
it's much more specific. In fact, they don't want you to get like the way that we were selling cocktails during COVID, which is something that the state allowed us to do to help kind of make back the money with the lowering of capacity. And all the things that happened to us in restaurants during COVID was we were able to, we could do it all. Like we could sell from the wine cellar, we could
Sure.
sell from, they basically let us have like retail plus because we could sell you a bunch of margaritas, a whole batch.
And did the top have to be closed in a way?
Yeah, but it was
open
very
wide?
non-specific during COVID. So everybody just kind of did what they did. And now the law is very specific. It has to be the exact drink that you could order at the bar.
Okay.
Right? So these are going to be, I
so
brought you
if
a
you have a
Boston
batch,
bottle
right.
today to show you what the batch looks like, but this is exactly
So-
what the cocktails are going to be released as. They're going to be in 4-ounce Boston bottles.
Oh, cool. So what is this OMD?
So the
besides
OMD
being a band
is
from the
Coche
70s?
Commodores, exactly. The OMD is Coche Commodore's contribution to the 4 cocktail set of drinks that we are launching.
Okay, so the Coche one is OMD. What's in it?
It's mezcal. And
Of course,
it's a riff.
Coche, for people who don't know, Coche is a very terrific
Yeah, so Coche Commodore is
Latin.
our Mexican restaurant. It's also our baby because we just opened in 2019, and it has an agave-based
good. I would
back
give
bar.
it
So it's very specific.
I can get into that restaurant.
You can get in there. We don't take reservations.
I can get
People
into La
listening should
Fondita.
know that this has an amber. What's giving it its sort of brown?
Well, that's
Brownish
great
red.
that you asked because that's what makes it what it is. So the OMD is a riff on a drink that's a riff on another drink. So it's actually a riff on the Mexican Firing Squad. The Mexican Firing Squad is an old
I've
drink.
never heard of any of these
We're looking at
drinks.
you like, what?
Mexican Firing Squad's been around since like
Get
the
me to an
1930s.
old-fashioned, lady.
Okay.
It's old. So and it's very simple. It's tequila, it's grenadine, and lime juice. Okay.
Grenadine. Wow.
So grenadine, right? And then what happens is somebody in the modern cocktail canon, some really cool bartender gets a hold of something like a Mexican Firing Squad, and he says, "I'm going to put my stamp on that."
Right.
So he makes a Oaxacan Firing Squad, which is mezcal, grenadine, and lime juice, but he takes the extra step and he infuses the grenadine with mole negro.
Shut up.
Shut up.
Chocolate
Really?
sauce.
So in my case, I have Chef Juan Juarez's mole negro, which he's famous for. He's a chef. Our chef at Coche Commodore is from Puebla. He is amazing. And the
Here
moles,
legally?
he's here, of course.
Wow. Wow.
And the moles are, they're world class. So what we've done is we've taken a drink that some people already know about, and we've riffed on it and we've improved on it. And then what I've further done is made it into a batch cocktail that's been clarified, because you can't just throw mole into a drink.
No.
It has fat.
You can't throw a mole into a drink either, because they struggle to get out
the whole
and run away.
purpose of a milk punch, when you add the dairy, what it does is it incorporates all of the disparate ingredients. It softens them. So it's going to soften the acid. It's going to soften the proof. If there's a high proof alcohol involved, right? It's going to incorporate and just pull it all together so that it has this beautiful knit together flavor. And it's really elegant, it's really sophisticated, but for us, what it also does is it provides shelf stability. So that's why we're creating. So we created a cocktail at Nick and Tony's.
Okay, what's that one?
That's the Gramercy Worship.
The Gramercy Worship. What's in that one?
It's the exact milk punch that I had at Gramercy.
Oh, okay.
But I just made it myself. It's not like they gave me a recipe.
You riffed on it.
I ripped it off.
Okay. No,
so that is gin.
We don't say rip off. We say it's an homage.
It's totally an homage. It's Gramercy Worship.
Yeah.
So that is gin and Calvados and local Finger Lakes dry cider.
Wait, Finger Lakes isn't local to the Hamptons.
It's local to us.
It's local to New York.
It's local to like our wine, when we talk about New York. Yeah,
yes,
it's regional.
It's our terroir.
Also, we don't do cider really on Long Island. We do some pear cider up on the North Fork, but that's really
hard cider, like hard cider, because you can get like regular
dry, sparkling, beautiful apple based.
Oh, cool!
Everything's hard with these people. You can't get into any of their restaurants.
I know, and then you can't get the Calvados.
Hey, listen, before we let you go, you mentioned the pandemic.
I want to hear the other drinks.
You don't want to hear about the Invisible Sex Panther and the Sneaky
I want to
Tiki?
know, since we're talking about how hot everything is in August, whether we have a few more minutes now.
Okay.
Whether your restaurants have done well this summer. Is everybody back, and is everybody sort of?
Yeah, I think that 2023 has presented its own unique challenges for us as restaurateurs, as people just trying to stay ahead of trends and ahead of our guests to provide that level of service post-COVID. We really don't know. We can't predict, and we haven't been able to. We saw some patterns of people returning to international travel, of course. Yeah. We saw some of that last year, and there are like currents and trends that we can try to put our fingers on about, like, were people here? We had a bang up 4th of July.
I still can't get into Nick and
that's not even a week. That's like a 2-week, season. Right. 4th of July is not a day. It's not a week. For restaurants, it's like 2 weeks.
Well, I'm sorry to jump around, but I want to know what the drink of the soul of Town Line Barbecue is. Because you're eating barbecue. What kind
my
of
bar
cocktail?
manager there might disagree with me, because it really is a whiskey back bar there.
Right.
But what we created for them for summer is a drink called the Sneaky Tiki, and the Sneaky Tiki is a riff, again, on a very well-known, especially to the audience out here, cocktail, which is known as the painkiller. Have you ever had a painkiller?
I've had those
Comes
on.
with ball peen hammer to smack you on the head.
You know where they serve those on golf courses?
They serve them at the Soggy Dollar, where you have to swim to the bar to get your painkiller.
Where's that?
It's in Joost van Dyke.
Okay.
And, lots of people have traveled there. And they call it the Soggy Dollar because you have to swim from your boat.
Okay.
You can also get lobsters there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the painkiller
Stones
is
party
basically an intensely rummy, pineapple-y, juicy.
Can I ask you something? I mean, I'm sorry to jump around, but how do you do something like this and be able to taste things without being like fall down drunk all the time?
Well, so tasting is different than drinking, right?
I really wish someone
spit everything. I spit everything. I taste hundreds of wines some days in the city when I'm there for work, and you can't manage that unless you're spitting.
Yeah, so you have to have a lot of
I'd give it a shot.
But the R&D part of this is certainly fun.
Yes,
right?
I'm sure.
That's one of the best parts of my job.
Well, Shemaine McNaughton, you brought so many cool, fun things.
Yeah,
let's have a little party afterward.
Yeah,
the show.
We'll celebrate.
And thank you so much for coming, Shemaine McNaughton. If people want to learn more about the Rowdy, the Honest Family, what's the website?
So each of the restaurants has a website, and we are working on launching, hopefully this month, but maybe it'll take till September, a group newsletter as well.
Okay.
So you can seek out each of the restaurants individually.
You can use the Googles and
you can use the
Bings.
You're a podcast. Your whole story about going to different restaurants and ripping them off or getting homage with what they do
yes, it's an homage.
is a great podcast.
Thanks.
We will look forward to that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Shemaine, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shemaine.
And,
hey, from a giant hot box in the middle of nowhere, because this is public radio and TV, and we fell short on the air conditioning budget during the pledge drive, this is AirHamptons with Bridget and Bill. Pass the chili Budweiser. I'm not drinking it. I'm putting it somewhere. Well, you know, one of the things we didn't talk to Shemaine about was, Jim, let's get a little music going here, a little hot August. The official recipe. Now, you've known everything else on this show today.
Yeah.
Can you give me all the liquors in an official Long Island iced tea?
I can't give you one of them.
This is the real thing.
I have no idea. It's
This is
vodka.
the absolute.
I don't want to guess because I keep guessing right and you get
No,
upset.
there's no vodka. There's no vodka.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, there is. That's the
course
first
there's vodka.
ingredient. Vodka is the number
First,
one
number
ingredient.
one. Vodka. I don't know. What else is in a real Long Island
You get a
iced tea?
half fluid ounce of vodka, a half fluid ounce of rum, a half fluid ounce of gin, a half fluid ounce of tequila. Oh, man.
I call this breakfast.
A half fluid ounce triple sec, which is an orange flavored liqueur for those who don't know it. Then a fluid ounce of sweet and sour mix, a fluid ounce of cola to taste, and a lemon slice. And instead of the sweet and sour, some people use 7-Up. But that is the official Long Island iced tea. And now you know because you're listening to
AirHamptons with Bridget and Bill.
Right.
Coming to you from somewhere in
them drinks, the other one
from the
doesn't.
slums of Wainscott.
Oh yeah,
North of the highway.
in the most expensive zip code in the United States.
And speaking of expensive zip codes,
Yes,
our next,
nice.
I'm really
Boom.
Bridget, number one with the segue.
Wow,
We're
Patrick
here,
McLaughlin joins us. Thank you, sir.
and
Welcome.
we're going to talk about all kinds. And thank you, Jim Turner,
Nice.
for the musical segue. Yay!
He's hot and cool at the same time.
I saw
Patrick,
Jim Turner on the street the other day. He said, I didn't recognize you. You know, we're on the radio.
we're-
I said, Jim, I sit in the studio with you. What do you mean we're on radio?
I thought he was a tennis player.
He does look like a tennis player. I'll give you that.
Good to see you, Bridget.
Good to see you. Wow, that was nice. What are
What's
we?
your name, Princess?
I was like, are you freezing him out? What's up? What happened?
hell?
What happened in the green room that I missed?
Too much tension in the green room.
yeah,
my
we've been
gosh.
drinking, and well, we didn't. We got to look at a drink,
No.
and we've been hearing the official recipe for Long Island iced tea, and we're talking movies in a little while. But right now, we're really interested in you counting down the most expensive August rentals in the Hamptons, because people are going to not believe this. People who
I'd rather
don't
talk
know the
about
Hamptons.
movies, but whatever.
Well, we can do that
No,
too.
you-
Can I do a little
Time.
restaurant chat before we start the real estate thing?
Sure.
Yes.
So I did a blog recently, and I was shocked. There's a restaurant. I'm not going to say. Actually, there's two.
I saw that blog about how to get in and how they grade
How
you.
apparently they have actual software that Googles the client and gives them little notes about everybody who walks in.
Really?
Oh, wait, is this the restaurant in Sag Harbor?
I can't say.
Okay.
I can't say because I don't want to get because someone I know works there and they're like, just don't tell them.
okay.
I'm surprised more don't do that. I mean, there was a place in Los Angeles, and I'm sure the guy Googled me because he would go away and come back and suddenly be, Mr. McCuddy, I love you on Fox and Friends. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, he looked
He,
you
he
up.
saw Fox and Friends
Yeah, I know.
and he
I was
liked
as
you.
stunned as you are. That's why I think he Googled it. I don't think
Well,
he
did
actually
you
saw
see?
it.
I mean, years ago, Black Mirror did an episode called Nosedive that actually was co-written by Rashida Jones, and Cherry Jones was in it. No relation to Rashida, and it was about in the future because all of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Was about the fact that we would get graded on things, and like our credit score would be based on how liked we were, and all of this. So new people would be coming into the office with a whole bunch of juices.
What do
for
they do with
everyone.
bad information about somebody?
It's really
do they
cool.
decide
You
not
get
to
a
wait on
lousy
you, or you
table.
get?
And I asked Shemaine before she left. I said, "You guys don't do that." She said, "No, we do not." So that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Good to know. You won't
And-
get that
but
country man,
not
the
only that,
honest
but
man.
They're Googling you, and I don't know if this part is true, but they get images of you. I wonder if you're not terribly attractive. Did they put you by the bus station or by the kitchen door?
Well, it depends how much money you make, probably.
All right, we've been talking about how.
Okay, speaking of money,
We've been talking about how hot it is out here, and yet you've been constantly saying that there's a lot of stuff for rent this year. The rentals aren't doing as
Yeah, the
well.
rentals
People
didn't
bought
pick
too many
up.
houses during COVID and thinking
Yeah.
they could rent them, and they're all in the market. So
Correct,
that
correct,
all
correct.
said, there's still an audience for the top,
Right.
for the best of the best.
well, why don't you get your real estate license, Bill? That would be. I think that'd be great.
I think I'm the only one in the Hamptons who doesn't have one.
Everyone does have one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but remember a couple of years ago when Jay-Z and Beyonce, or as I call them, Bazy, They rented the Sandcastle for August for $400,000. That was like huge news.
Right.
Now that's like whatever.
For 1 month.
There's
August includes all the way to Labor Day, we should say. So for $400,000,
So
traditionally a summer
they got
rental is
5
Memorial
weeks.
Day to Labor Day,
Right.
and that's typically what the time frame is, and then everyone breaks it up: June, July, August. August being the most expensive month.
Well, also because
Everyone loves the traffic and the horse show, so that's why naturally it's more.
And you get
expensive.
that extra little, the extra little bit of September that for Labor Day, if you're lucky.
The little. Well, sometimes it can
Like
be
the
a week.
DVD bonus. You get a couple more days. Right.
I'm sorry,
Director's
I had a
commentary.
blueberry muffin from Levon before I came, so I keep living.
I want
swear
some.
LeBon gives him free stuff just so
They
he'll say it.
They don't,
Just so he'll
but
say
they
it.
should. Hello. Yeah.
So, all right, tell us some of the most expensive
Okay,
August
so there's
rentals
one.
in the Hamptons.
There's a something on Gin Lane. It's actually 2 houses.
Gin Lane in Southampton.
Yeah, Gin Lane in Southampton, and I brought my little cheat sheet here.
Yeah.
Well, you can rent the main house and the guest house for $1.8 million for the month of August.
What?
$1.8 million.
$1.8 million. Almost
Does that
$2 million
include
for a
utilities?
Does that include utilities?
Sadly, probably not. I guarantee you, probably not.
No, I'm
probably
sure it
not.
doesn't.
Well, what does it include,
And then you can
Patrick?
rent the one house for $1.1 million.
But
So
what's
there
in
you-
it? Like, does it have a helipad?
All right, well,
does it have
let's go through. I mean,
Dallas
it's a
Cowboys cheerleaders?
it's
How
a
many
big-
bedrooms
it's
and baths?
19 bedrooms.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
18 full baths.
Wow.
3 half baths. We're not, and it's it's on the ocean. It's front row, ocean. Plus they have a finished lower level.
Okay.
That bedroom
And it
without
comes
a
with free
bath.
daily
That one-
Reiki healing and massages.
The one
too.
bedroom
It comes
without
with
a
no.
that must be for help.
That's so funny.
That is funny.
Oh my God, that's huge. That's really.
And then
ridiculous.
there's one on Surfside that's going for $1 million.
$1 million
$1
for
million.
August.
And how big is that house?
For August. That is a little bit smaller. That's only 10 bedrooms.
Do we know what the most that's ever been paid and the height of the Russian oligarchs coming out here?
You
and
know
like-
what? Last year I know there was stuff going over $1 million for
Just for August.
just for August.
Why
But-
don't people buy something for that? That's
But
why
this year, I
who-
mean, the numbers won't come. We're not going to know what happened in this real estate market. I mean, we're talking August now. We're not going to know till like the end of September what went down.
Okay.
But I can tell you on the street, things are light. The rental market was very light this year. Everyone was in Europe and.
So they may cut that 1.8.
Although you would
down
never
to
know it going to Nick and
1.7.
Tony's because you still have to wait.
I wouldn't know. I
Wait,
can't
but
get
you
in
get a
there.
reservation. I'm sorry.
I'll take you in, honey.
Okay,
That's
thank
okay.
you.
I'll
Just
put
drive me
something
by
in
it.
the name
and
drop jar
give
for
me
that.
Give me a slice of pizza. What's the average regular rental for somebody listening to this, all this $1 million talk, and they
Okay.
wanted to come out here?
Just for August.
Was
I
just
thi-
for August. Was
Okay.
25 grand getting it done anywhere?
25 is you're in the Springs at 25 grand.
Okay.
So,
okay.
that's not. I mean, I love
Yeah.
the Springs. Depends. But I always say for something decent, you're probably looking at about $35,000 for the month of August for something decent with
Yeah.
a pool.
Yeah,
you
with
know?
a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
So
I
that
rent a
hasn't-
place for $1.8 million on Gin Lane, what's the security deposit?
You can't afford it.
You can't. If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Yeah, that's that. My dad used to say that.
If you have to ask, Mr. McCuddy, you can't.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't afford it before the question, but I was still curious.
Yeah.
All right.
Now that I'm spending so much time in Costa Rica, those prices are like, oh my! I could buy like 10 houses in Costa Rica for
You gotta
1.8
love
million.
Costa Rica.
I do. I
know
do.
you do.
Wow.
I do so much.
I
Well,
keep waiting for that invitation.
She's the pivot queen.
No,
We got
I
it.
do want to ask Patrick because we're talking about dog days of summer, kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that you're a dog person.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
tell us about your babies. Your
My
fur
favorite
babies.
beach actually is we like going to Beach Lane.
Beach Lane.
Yeah, in Wainscott
Yeah.
because you can go slightly longer than like East Hampton Village. 9 a.m. You got to be off. Shemaine
Oh,
knows too.
right.
Shemaine, what is that? Am I right?
Yeah.
And 10.
You know
You
what
get
I
till
like?
10 on Beach
I
Lane.
like Is it called Wyborg?
Wyborg is a
Wyborg.
big dog beach. Yeah, yeah. That's
I
a
feel
big
like
doggy
not
beach.
everybody knows about that too. It's kind of hidden over there by the
Yeah,
Maidstone.
it's next to Maidstone. That's my husband's beach. Was that? And Egypt's on the other side.
And there was a
Right.
big brouhaha in Sagaponack about one beach they were trying to ban dogs because some people, let's be real, they don't clean up after themselves.
Right.
But then again, people don't clean up after themselves.
Right.
You know,
It's
I've been
not
on
the
the
dog's
beach and
fault.
found like I've stepped on a fire pit where I burnt my foot from the night
no.
before.
Oh, my daughter did that.
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean seriously, I've seen dirty diapers. I've
Oh,
stepped
gross.
I've stepped on a fishing hook. Like so, come on, let's be real.
Maybe it's time for you to
not
wear
just the
shoes
dogs.
on the beach.
Maybe shoes
Yeah.
at the beach would be a good idea.
There used to be a comedian who used to have a joke is that she used to go to the beaches at Coney Island, and it was almost like a workout, like aerobics, because they step over the needle, step over the broken glass, step over the needle, step over the broken glass.
Well, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. No,
but anyway, but you do walk your dogs on the beach every day?
Pretty much every day. We also found a little park in East Hampton that just opened on Buckskill Road that we do our little lap in the morning.
Oh, that's so
Or as
sweet.
I call it, the Tick Factory.
Yes.
Tell folks about your 2 dogs. What are
Bella
they?
and Russell, both rescues. Russell we got from a real estate deal. I cut my commission, and the next thing I know, the broker from another company came over and said, "Oh, here, you're adopting Russell."
What?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
in the small print?
It was in the small print on the dog.
Sell the house, get a dog?
Yeah. But
Really?
It was a good
No.
deal. It was a great deal.
Oh.
It was
Oh
a
my
great
gosh,
deal.
well, he's a cutie.
He is a good guy.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for having me on. Are we done yet, or are we
No,
still
not
chatting
really.
I
away?
think we can talk a little bit about summer movies. What did I mean? We're going to talk about the August films, and I have a soundbite from Jacqueline Bisset where she talks about the Oscars. Now, this is interesting because she is the old guard. She's 78, still looks amazing.
Looks amazing.
And when we get to it, we had a conversation about whether or not the Academy should put men and women in the same category
Like
and
they're
say
doing in the
just
Tonys.
actor the way
They are?
Tonys
The Tonys, I believe, did a featured actor,
this year.
and it was men and women, and I think a woman won this year.
Yeah. Well,
I'm such a big Broadway guy,
Interesting.
you know.
hey, speaking of Broadway, Bay Street Theater knocking them dead with Dial M for Murder
Oh, yeah.
with Meryl Streep's daughter. Mamie Gummer is in that.
Yeah.
You mean Gummer the architect's daughter?
Meryl Streep's daughter, Patrick.
Meryl
Get with the
Streep's
program.
daughter.
Same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing.
Dial M for Murder. What's it about?
Yeah. It's,
Is it a?
Is it a
you don't remember the Alfred Hitchcock movie with
Yeah.
Grace
I saw
Kelly?
you. I mean, that was a joke.
Oh,
It was
I'm
a
sorry.
joke.
Yeah, we all
I had
remember
someone,
that.
and this is a
I
true
never know with
What?
you.
There's this. I knew someone once who said to me, "Titanic, is that the one about the boat?" I'm like,
No, it's the one about.
"No, it's the one about the Hindenburg." Like,
Yeah,
what do you think?
exactly. That's so
It's a
crazy.
World War II drama. True story. True
So
story.
what are some of what are the movies that are coming out?
Well,
Mr.
in a
McCuddy?
bittersweet way, we have a Jamie Foxx movie coming out that he did with Will Ferrell a long time ago with dogs. Speaking of Dog
Strays,
Day Afternoon,
right?
It's called Strays, and it's a comedy where they use live action footage of dogs, like the talking baby thing.
Oh, like a
Travolta,
Look Who's Talking, right, where
Look
the
Who's
mouths
Talking,
move,
yeah.
kind of.
So this
All right.
is, by the way, do you know how they made Mr. Ed talk?
peanut butter on his lips.
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter and piano wire.
No,
Oh.
we don't want to hear that.
I want to hear that. But
No
can we-
animals hurt in the making of Strays, but this was when Jamie Foxx was healthier, and so it's bittersweet from that standpoint.
Sure.
Also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Mayhem is called. It's another Teenage Mutant Ninja,
yeah.
and a new superhero movie because we don't have enough of those.
Gosh.
Thank God.
Called Blue Beetle. Where a guy becomes a giant scarab, and he's, I believe, Latin American.
Are you kidding?
No.
And then they use his wings to make Skittles shiny. That's what that stuff is.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
it is. I'll look it up. The ingredients.
Can we
the
go back
stuff
to
that makes-
Jacqueline Bisset, who was in one of the best summer movies ever, The Deep.
The Deep.
The Deep. I
I
remember
love that movie.
Well, I'm
everyone loves it,
gonna
but-
have to do a little bit of this because, of course, I got a chance to hang out with Jacqueline Bisset when my stepdad designed Murder on the Orient Express and exactly have a necklace. So I think
The
that
Sidney
we're going
Lumet
to-
version.
What
So-
happened in Murder on the Orient Express? Was that about the boat?
No, that's Titanic. Kaboom. So I think we're going to go to
So
your,
okay, so
little
yeah,
interview.
let's roll Jacqueline. So here's what I asked her: how does she feel about the political correctness these days of actors and actresses having to play their own parts and be one nationality to play that?
This is a really
nationality?
long intro.
And,
Jeez.
and she says, here's what she's thinking.
I can't take all this talk about the sexual, who's man, who's woman. I just don't understand it. I don't think that's particularly, I haven't thought about it, but I would say that's probably not a good idea. I don't really think that's I think it's all getting crazy. The directors can only use the person who's able to be the person to do. It's acting. Where does acting come in? Acting is a job which is about having a variety of emotions and different things that you can do. If you have to be Mexican to play a Mexican part, if you have to be Italian to play an Italian part, I just don't know where that takes us to. I don't see it. It's not a political statement when you get casting. You try and find the right person for the job. There's a degree of it. I think that things should be open to many, many groups of people. That's all great, and I'm all for casting being fair and to sense. But to say to somebody, you cannot make this movie with the person you want, you got to make it with somebody else because of a rule, I don't think that's a great thing. And I think it's turning a lot of people off.
Well, that's controversial because we don't know what's going to happen at the Oscars, but we do know that there's a big contingency that doesn't like the idea of grouping them. And what many actors and actresses have told me is there'll be 2 women and 8 guys in the category.
Yeah. Well, also what she's talking about, like having, I mean, I do understand about, especially for people of color to be able to play people of color.
Right.
I mean, my grandfather directed Tea House of the August Moon, and Alec Guinness played an Asian man.
Right.
So that I understand.
And I don't think we ever want to see Mickey Rooney playing.
Oh, no. But I mean, because Eric and I are always late to the game, we were watching Succession last month, and we noticed there was a scene with Shiv and her husband Tom and Brian Cox, Logan, and all 3 of them are British, and they're sitting there playing Americans. I'm totally okay with that. In fact, I love looking. I'm going, oh, they're Australian. They do such a good American accent. I love that. So I don't have a problem with people portraying Americans, but that's different.
Hank Azaria playing a Middle Eastern guy on the new Idol that Sam Levinson came out with and is getting roundly panned anyway, but just seems like really tone deaf.
Well, let's just go back to like Sam Levine. Wasn't it Sam Levine who played, what was the movie? Come on. Gunga Din. Gunga Din.
Sam, no.
Little Jewish fella.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Levine.
See, I thought you were going to talk about Azaria on The Simpsons doing Apu.
Right.
Which
for
they
a million
stopped,
years.
I believe.
Yes.
Well, I
they
understand
made the
that.
right-
I mean, I do understand that people are, that people should play. And there's enough of a pool now. Maybe it was more restricted in the big Hollywood days of who was actually allowed to sit at the table. So it was a smaller pool of actors to choose from. But now people should play the role from their particular race.
Now, from a totally sexist standpoint, how great does, and if you're listening to this, you didn't see it, how great does Jacqueline Bisset look at 78?
Oh, she looks amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's stunning. That was her, again, if you're listening, you didn't see it, but
Pull over your car and Google her.
That's her Malibu home we spoke from, or to each other from. And the movie is called Lauren and Rose, and I should say that it opened in June, but now is streaming in August, and it's kind of it's she and a young director who wants to cast her in a movie, and it's kind of like My Dinner with Andre. It basically is 2 people sitting in a restaurant talking about the business, and she wants this part, and then she doesn't, and he wants her, and then he doesn't, and it's kind of a little dance that they do, and it's really quite good. I recommend Lauren and Rose with the great Jacqueline Bisset, who said, by the way, that she was just, do you remember seeing the movie, I think in 1970, Airport, where she was the stewardess and she was carrying Dean Martin's baby, and Dean Martin was
like
married,
literally carrying it, or
Dean Martin was married to Perry Mason's secretary, Della
Reese?
Yeah,
No,
Della Reese is
Donna Reed. No,
I can't remember
I know
the
who Della
actress's
Reese
name,
is.
but she was no Jacqueline Bisset. And I said, I remember at the time that being just like so crazy that you were carrying a married man's baby. And she said, I know, she was such a silly girl. I can't believe I played that part either. And of course, now it's all tame. There's like nothing.
And then when she flew the plane, that was amazing.
No, she didn't fly the plane.
Didn't the pilot get sucked out of the? Oh, that was 75. Airport
there were many of them.
No, but I think there does. I think something does go off in this
a bomb.
one.
It was Maureen Stapleton's
Gosh,
husband.
you're bringing me back to all those movies like Earthquake, where the
Let's
theater
talk more
would
about
shake.
Airport 75.
Erwin Winkler.
Erwin Winkler. No, is he the one who gave like the Tingler where you had that was earlier.
Erwin Winkler did the Rocky movies and Raging Bull.
Yeah,
but he also did the Tower.
Poseidon
was
Adventure.
Erwin Allen.
Oh,
Erwin Allen,
Thank
right,
you,
and
Erwin Allen.
Poseidon Adventure and all those
people.
And Jim, play some We Got It Wrong Hot August music to get us out of this.
And we want to thank our guests, Gary Bierfriend with Hamptons Cannabis Expo, and Shemaine McNaughton for the Honest Man Group beverage director.
With a long list of, by the way, Rowdy Hall is kind of like our Cheers. Doesn't that feel like when you watch the TV show Cheers that's in Rowdy Hall?
Now the new one, I'm against it.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. They've got way too much money at that first.
Oh, stop. You're jealous.
Yeah, this is from a hot box in the middle of nowhere. We are Bill and Bridget, and this is AirHamptons. Thanks, Jim Turner. Thanks to all our guests. Thanks to our sponsors. Wow, it is the dog days.